Hello everyone, this is Group 40 and we shall be presenting scenario 2 asset depreciation. And for our first part, they want us to create a login form. To create a login form, we shall click Insert and we have our user form. And after that, we shall click on our toolbox we shall put our labels onto the user form. We shall drag and drop, and that will be our text box for the label. Then we shall drag and drop a command button. That was just how to create a form, and here's our form. Our login form, Kabohe Women's Group. It has the username and the password and the command button, which is enter. So now we're going to run our form by clicking enter to get our code. So to show you how our code works, we shall press run. For our username, we're required to put BBC and for the password, it shall be 2025. So we click enter and we shall get our message box which shows success. And after that, an automatic user form 1 shall come. So now I shall explain for you the code that's behind the form. Enter to get our code. So our form runs by subroutine, and this is the code behind our form. We use dim is the keyword we use to initialize variables. So we shall say dim username as string. String is the data type for username. Same goes to password. So to input our data into surname and password, we shall say username is equals to text user.value. Value is the data we enter into text user, which is stored under the username. We shall also go on and say if username is equals to BBC and password is equals to 2025, then we shall receive a message box that says successful login. And when we click OK, we shall receive a user form, and the code here that says user form 1.show brings our user form.
Hello everyone, we are now answering part 2 of the question, which is the asset entry form. Here we're asked to build a user form that captures the name, cost, salvage value, useful life, and depreciation method. When the user clicks submit, the system should create the annual depreciation expense and store the asset record on a worksheet named asset register. So the first thing that we had to do was create a worksheet called asset register is here that we created. So after doing that, we now begin with the code, with the form itself, sorry. So to do this, have our form here, which we created using the toolbox. So now we have 5 inputs. We chose to use an input field for method because that's the best thing we could do. But we had an if statement to pick which depreciation method to use. So in this case, we gave all these input fields names. They're all here. So I can refer back to them in the code later on. When a user clicks submit, it should automatically register that asset in the asset register form and then also create a new worksheet that gives us the information about the asset. So to explain this code, we have dim throughout, dim meaning initialize that as that variable, and we have the data type here, as my colleague had explained before. But we have some new entries here. We also have dim WS as a worksheet. In VBA, a worksheet is also considered as a data type. So we have dim WS as a worksheet, and then also we have dim year as integer. We also have a new worksheet that you're going to create called schedule WS, which is going to be the new worksheet created for every specific asset entered. So the first thing that we did was we got the values that were stored inside the asset input text field and stored inside asset, and the same applies for all these. After doing so, we then chose to now create our worksheet. So right now we have a variable called ws, and the type is worksheet. This ws needs an object, and the object is going to be the asset register worksheet that the question had asked us to create. So this command simply means set our variable called ws, and within this current workbook, which has this code, we're going to look into the sheets, and we're going to look for a sheet called asset register, which we're going to assign the ws variable. So right after doing all that, we also answered part 4 within here, that if the method we've chosen is not equal to SLN, and the same thing for all these, then it's going to be invalid because we're only expecting 3 entries. Now notice here we have capital letters for all these, and we force this by using this keyword here, ucase, which enforces a capital letter. So even if I type in SLN with a small letter, the output is going to be a capital. We also have this part here that where we are going to automatically add. Here we automatically add a new worksheet. So how this works is we had created a schedule ws variable, and again using the same commands, this workbook.sheets, we're going to add a new worksheet which has this variable name. And then this variable name, now this very same worksheet, there's a command for it where you can name the worksheet itself. So schedule ws is a variable. We're then going to name that worksheet with depreciation, then underscore here. We're going to use a snake case, and then we're going to concatenate using the ampersand. That's the name of the asset, which we had stored up here initially as a string. So now we then proceed to we're now going to create the column headers. And to do that, we get the variable name of our worksheet, and then we're going to look for the range that starts with A1, and we're going to input there. Yeah, we do the same for the last these three. Now we begin our for loop. So for the very beginning time of this asset's life at year 1 until its useful life, let's get the time when we finally conclude that we don't need it, we're going to choose to calculate its depreciation using any of the 3 given methods. And how we did this was, if the method was equal to SLN, straight line method, then we are going to move within the Excel application inside the worksheet function calculator folder. We're going to look for a straight line method, and we're going to insert these parameters. These parameters are the ones we stored, that we initialized up here as variables. The same, we do the same for declining balance and this one. So what's happening here is, since all this data is going to be inputted year after year, we're going to have different rows for all these. We need to keep on adding a row for all these. So the first year is going to be having 4 years. So currently we need to input data directly into the worksheet, which is called schedule ws, which is the worksheet that's related to the asset, to the new asset. So to do that, we get the name of the variable worksheet, which is schedule ws, which is schedule worksheet, and we're going to look into the cells. So since in these formulas we're looking at all the years from the first year until the last year of the useful life, we need to keep on adding 1. The format for this code in .cells, when we open brackets, we have the row index, which is this one, and the column index. For the row index, it's always going to increase because every year we add 1 to the previous year. So what happens here is we're going to input this data using this value, and it's going to be coming in from year being part of the variables that we initialized here. And we do the same for the year and the book value and the depreciation and the end book value, which is the book value, the last book value minus depreciation. Then this is calculated for the next year, and then we end our loop with the next year piece of code. So what we now have here is ws. Now this ws is coming from is the name for the variable name for our asset register sheet, the one which is going to be recording just the assets itself. So here we have five things to put inside our asset register sheet. We look into our cell range, A2 being the first cell that we want to input our data for the name of the asset. The same applies to the cost, salvage value, useful method, useful life, and the method. Once all this has been finished, we then have a message that shows us the creation schedule has been created successfully. So to show how this runs, so just click run. We have an asset maybe of a car. The car can cost maybe 25,000 US dollars. Maybe the salvage value of about 15,000 US dollars. And useful life will probably 25 years. And we're going to choose the declining balance method. Here we put in a small letter or capital, doesn't matter because our code forces capital. Once we submit, get our message box here, and then you can close. So notice down here, we have the name of the worksheet created automatically. And then also in our asset register, we've registered a new asset being this. So I have to expand this a little bit. It comes out as to how we expect it to come out. This is group 40. Thank you very much for listening. Bye.